chest x-ray that showed a right shoulder lesion. Furthermore, she's had an MRI and CT, and she's had a biopsy.
So at first in section, I did an all-red O stain to highlight lipid, which stains up orange. And a lot of the cells had bright orange droplets in them. And this one is a classical, what we call a two-tone giant cell, where all the nuclei are in the middle, and there's like a collection of lipid around it. And so those features are consistent then with the juvenile xanthogranuloma. And that was the oncology meetings on a weekly basis. This morning I also went to the neuroradiology meeting because that's at 7:30 to 8:30. And then the renal meeting and the GIT meeting, pediatric surgical meetings and dermatopathology meetings, sort of muscle biopsy meetings. So that's why I think the hardest part for me is actually not having enough hours in the day, in a working day. Introduced them already. This is Rosina, she's our new lab assistant. And Clella, our lab technician in Israel, who started in March, of this year? In February of this year. And it is our lab manager. So I'm the only consultant here, and then when I'm on leave, somebody from Curtis Care comes to cover. But otherwise it's just me and my registrar.
Gastroenteritis, septic shock, hypovolemic shock, hypochloremic and acidosis. They were worried about meningitis infected.
Well, it looks mixed, eh? Oh, there's Klebsiella.
Klebsiella pneumonia.
Oh gosh, so there was Klebsiella sepsis. Did the superior sagittal sinus vein look very like thrombosed or congested?
No.
Yes, no.
Okay. Oh, the child did cold. Oh, pediatrics, yes, and it just sounded like something I would like to do. And pathology I was only exposed to in third year, and in fourth year we had a student internship program that was started where a student could do research in any discipline that they chose, and at the same time they could mentor second and third year students that were struggling. So I applied for that, and I ended up doing a research project on rhabdomyosarcomas with Prof. Govender for 2 years. And I think, he had a lot of confidence that I could do this. I wasn't sure at the time. And then in community service, Prof. Chetty was the head of department, offered me a registrar post. You just learn from everybody along the way. So I think even then when we started, we had a fantastic bunch of senior registrars that taught you so much when you're learning to do autopsies and cutting up. And every consultant teaches you something unique. So I remember, like even now if I check a case and I'll remember something that a consultant taught me about a case like 15 years ago, and you remember in exactly the case and the consultant, and even though I have textbooks highlighted and remember nothing, like those learning experiences you remember so well. And because we do a lot of private and state muscle biopsies, so we do muscle biopsies from private in Durban, and from the Western Cape, I think all of the private and state, adults and children.
With muscles, what I'm busy doing here is some immunocytochemical techniques. It's become our forte, and Kumla has tremendous experience in looking at this.
So we see in children a lot of muscular dystrophies. The commonest one that we know is Duchenne's. There are other limb-girdle muscular dystrophies. There's congenital myopathies like mitochondrial myopathy, centronuclear myopathy. And then we see inflammatory myopathies. So in children, mainly dermatomyositis. In adults, we see polymyositis, dermatomyositis, autoimmune associated from mixed connective tissue disease. Quite a broad range of pathology, so you need a broad panel of stains to make a diagnosis. Apart from pathology, I try to look after my children. I've got the one's going to be 3 next week, and one is 7. And a lot of the morning actually depends on what sort of mood my 2-year-old wakes up in. And my son, occasionally he looks down the microscope. He knows the little blue cells make the children sick. And my husband, we spent our honeymoon at a pathology conference, and he actually attended all the pathology lectures. I'm not particularly talented at anything. I've tried a lot of things. When I was at school, I did Indian classical dancing for about 6 or 7 years. My friends, even the medical ones, think I do autopsies the entire day. And so I have to remind them that actually 90% of what we do here is diagnostic work, but the patient is actually still alive. And so this was another case that we had in a 4-year-old boy with a 3-month history of cervical lymphadenopathy and B symptoms. So it was, is it lymphoma, is it TB? On a Friday afternoon, I think it was, as usual. So again, we took our millimeter of tissue, smeared it across just from the core biopsy. And looking at it, as you can see, it's not discolusive. It doesn't look like a lymphoma, but there were clear rosettes. Immediately tell them, you know what, this actually looks like a neuroblastoma. So which changed everything. The child had spinal cord compression, so they had to start chemotherapy on the weekend. Before, communication is very important. You know, I just find you can take one specimen with suboptimal data or clinical information and show it to 6 pathologists and not really get a good result. But if you go back to the clinician and say, now, how did this child actually present? And go to the radiologist and say, well, they think it's lymphoma, but could there be like a little lesion in the lung because it's looking like a carcinoma to me? You end up, you know, solving the problem a lot better.